Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The board wants to provide ample opportunity for public comment on matters that come before us. Your input is important. If you wish to address an item already on the agenda, we ask that you do so when that item comes up for discussion. If you have a comment on a matter not on the agenda, this is the time during our meeting for such comments. The board would like to remind everyone in attendance that to avoid violations of individual rights of privacy, a member of the public wishing to address the board during this time will not be allowed to make comments about any student, staff member, or member of the general public. Does anyone wish to speak at this time? Mr. Nelson.
For the record, my name is Stephen Nelson. I was recently an employee here at the school. I would like you to consider, when it comes time to negotiate with the parents, their salary, that you do away with the split pay. I spent 5 hours out on the playground every day, and I think I was worth more than the dollar less they were paying me. There's 100 kids in recess, up to 300 at noon, and for that I got paid $1.06 less an hour. I don't think it's fair. And the parents that don't have one-on-one because their kid is sick or other things happen that they don't show up, then they get docked too. And then they have to keep track of all these hours. It just takes a lot of paperwork for them and a lot of headache. Any other job I've ever went to, when I worked a job, we settled on a price, and that price was paid the full 8 hours, 10 hours I worked. This is the first time I've ever been in a job where I was deemed less valuable out on the playground than working with one-on-one with a kid. Now, I know that's the first thing I heard out of a school board member is you're broke. But it affects all of the paras that you hire. And they spend a lot of their free time trying to figure out, okay, what hours do I put in today? And it shouldn't be. They should just have to put in 8 hours. I understand that the funding for the one-on-ones is special funding, but that can be done on the kid's absentee or something else, rather than leave it up to the parents to have to figure out their hours that way. They were very nice to me. They didn't bother me. The 3 hours I was in school, I was working in a classroom or one-on-one with a child. But a lot of the other parents, when their kid isn't there, they get docked. So please consider it when it comes time for negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Recognition, delegations, correspondence. And then we have the one letter.
Yes, so in your packet is the letter from the Townsend Education Association to open negotiations, which you have done. There is also a letter that was more recently received in regards to a new subdivision. So I will pass this around and see if you guys have any questions or concerns or can help me take a look at this. Whenever there's a new proposal for a subdivision, we have the opportunity to submit any questions or comments to make sure that educational services or any concerns about providing educational services are considered. So usually this has to do with making sure that there's a bus stop, if necessary, at a subdivision that's being added. So I can pass that along. And then we also just received a letter from the auditors, and this is an audit governance letter that's coming at the conclusion of the audit. It's not the audit report.
Okay. I guess one other kind of general thing I wanted to go over really quick. There's been a lot of questions on how the school board trustee election ballots are gonna look. I just wanted to clarify that. So there's basically two different terms, two different positions that are up for election. So there's 2 3-year terms currently held right now by myself and Vanessa, and there'll be a 1-year term that's currently being held by Daniel. Those, when you file your declaration of intent, you have to choose which one of those positions that you're running for. And the names do not cross over. So there'll be a group of names that go for the 3-year terms, and you will vote, as a voter, you will vote for 2 names in that column. The 2 highest votes win those positions, and there'll be a group of names in the 1-year column, and the highest vote, you only vote for 1, wins that space. So even though, say, the 3rd place person in the 3-year column might have more votes in tally than the 1-year, that name doesn't cross over. They are 2 different positions. They're basically 2 different elections. I know there's been some question. I just wanted to kind of clear that up as best as I could that way. I was going to draw a fancy picture on the board. All right, moving on. Items of discussion, committee reports.
Okay, so as you know, we have had the activities committee who met recently and discussed baseball and junior high cheerleading, and we did have multiple members attend that. However, we have Member Flynn and our Vice Chair Reagan on the activities committee. So I don't know if you guys want to give any highlights from those meetings. If you have anything to add, or I can give a brief overview.
I'll defer my comments to the action item.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So we talked about baseball as we have been for a while. Went through multiple discussions on fields, agreements with the city, and many of those other components that have been part of that puzzle. And of course, talked about how budget was a major component of that. We also did discuss how the districts near us that are, or not necessarily near us, the other districts in the state that are fundraising for baseball, and received some information on that just recently that we can talk about during the action item. And then our cheer coach, Miss Holly Smedley, she presented on an opportunity for starting junior high cheerleading, because there's been some interest in that, and she thought that would be helpful to get some more students involved. And so she did a presentation on that, and we talked about different avenues or options maybe for starting that. She'll continue to meet with the activities committee in regards to that. If nothing else, hopefully we can do a camp, a cheer camp, or like a miniature season or something like that. So that was the activities committee. Any other comments from board members? All right, the curriculum committee. We talked about current needs. The oldest curriculum we have at this point in time with our ESSER funds that we received from COVID relief, we did invest in updating a lot of our curriculums, and especially in the elementary school literacy and different areas like that. I know a lot of the high school teachers got new novel sets. One of the areas was the health books were identified as being quite outdated. And as you can imagine, a lot of that changes fast. So we did review some new editions of the Glencoe Health Book, and we'll continue those discussions. The Lexia, which is an intervention program, but almost all students use it. It helps build literacy skills in elementary school. We talked about that and the continuation of that. We talked about the different assessments. The principals presented information on how students are performing, and the high school talked about enrollment, increased opportunities, and options for high school students. In strategic planning, we went over core purpose and core values. I believe we have a date. If you will all concur tonight, we will get that set. It looked like from the doodle poll that everyone would be available on April 4th from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Does that sound like a date and time that works for everyone? I'll get that.
Like I said, I may be a little late.
Thank you for being flexible with that. I think that worked the best for the majority. If people have to miss a portion, that's understandable. But we'll get that posted April 4th from 4 to 6 o'clock. And we encourage community and staff participation at those strategic planning meetings. MTSBA is facilitating those for us. At the technology meeting, we went over the budget and the need for approximately 250 new Chromebooks. And we talked about the E-rate funding that we are waiting to receive. Negotiations met on the 5th and again today to discuss teacher contracts. And we will be working on another safety committee date here in the near future. I am monitoring, there's some grants that we're hoping will open around March 15th. They usually open March 15th annually. The STOP grant and others that will help us to put more security components in place for the buildings as well as for our SRO and training for staff and all kinds of different components for safety. So we will keep an eye on those and meet as those come open. And now we're on to standards-based grading, and I will turn it over to Mrs. Hartman for that. Thank you. Thank you.
So our current policy states that we're to use a grading system. So your ABCs are proficient with our lower grades. We've been working on moving towards a standards-based grading, which would dissolve those letter grades and be more focused on power standards, as they call them. So those main areas that we want to know that students are strong in. And this is the scale, the grading scale that they would be looking at using. So a simple one like kindergarten, if they are to count 1 to 100 by the end of the school year, you would see by quarter 1, maybe they're only at 50% proficiency, and they can show that with this scale here. Maybe at quarter 1, they only need to get to 20, so then they're proficient with that standard. So based on what that standard states, they'll be able to tell parents then exactly what their child knows. Where a letter grade is very subjective, it doesn't really tell you a whole lot, it doesn't tell you what they learned, what they know, how well they know it, maybe what you need to work on with them. So in order to change the policy, we need to go through certain steps. We've gone through a couple of steps already. 3rd through 5th parent-teacher conferences were shared this information. It was also sent home with them. We are going to have, again, the same information at our K2 conferences and make sure the parents share this information. Then there's a quick survey, and I've been gathering all the data from that. So far, I do have a few from 3.5 that have responded. Once we get it out to K2, then I'll reach out again and through Class Dojo and ask parents, please, do our survey so that you can give us the feedback we need to know moving forward with this method of grading. And I know there's elementary staff out here that can probably answer a few more questions. They've been involved in developing this. We would just start with reading at this time, and then we would move into math in the future. So then once we get all those survey results, so this is just more of an informative thing for you guys this time, but then in the future, once we get all those results, then we can bring it forward with the policy and look at changing that policy, because right now it does state grades. Questions?
Are you looking at the fall of 24?
Correct, fall of 24. And what the talk that we've discussed about doing is like this spring, we would do a regular report card and then something like this along with it so that they can compare and look at the two just so that parents can see it in both eyes. I've got team members working on that tech side of it, that's not my side. You guys have anything to add?
I'd just like to add that I got to sit in briefly on a couple of their conversations about it. And I know that they had a committee that put a lot of work and thought into this, and thank them for their efforts and for thinking forward and looking at doing something new and innovative and trying it out. So thanks for all your time and effort that you put into it.
I think just from doing it in Nevada, the transition, like any other change, was kind of challenging for the community, but it is much more informative to the parents, because you are finding out, the 5 power standards in math, where your child is doing well and then where they are struggling. So you don't just get one grade for each subject, you get several, so that can identify areas that the teacher can provide intervention as well, so.
Will this tie in the fast bridge relatively easy?
That's our infinite campus,
Okay.
that we does all our grading system. And
Yeah, I just
and-
meant from a assessment or skills-based testing.
Yes.
All in.
From a title teacher perspective, yes. Because I can run those reports that will say, after we have tested a kid, and it will say, these are the areas of strength, these are the areas of weakness, we're working hard to make sure that those align with what our report card is going to look like, which it should anyhow, because they are power standards. But then, in our cost grade level, or our grade level meetings, we can go and say, hey, Sally is low here, this is what this report says, I'm going to give her additional support in my classroom, send her back to her regular teacher, also have instruction there as well. So yeah, I can see it as a win-win. And, and Jamie said that it's more informative to the parents, but it's also more informative to the kids. They can go, oh man, I rocked it right here. I know how to do this. This one I need to work on. And I think that's really powerful, but especially for our older kids. I can see that maybe not for your little guys as much, but through conversations with parents and teachers and that smaller child, it can be just as powerful. Even the old lady is excited about it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Okay. I guess the next couple are mine. A couple of good news items, I guess, in my eyes. A few months ago, we talked about the hail insurance and that project of roof replacement that, we had to pay the contractor and the architect, what we owed them for doing that work, but it was above and beyond what the insurance company had paid us in the depreciable value of our insurance premiums essentially over time, and that we would have to go back to them to recover the difference between what they had paid us and what it cost, which is called the recoverable value. But we had to pay that bill to the contractors in order to satisfy those contracts. Spoke that we didn't know how long it was going to take, and it was a potential that it could have taken, some legal action if the insurance company decided to refute what our claim came out to be. But happy to report that just after the last board meeting, we did receive that check back from the insurance company. So those funds have been replaced, that basically we had to borrow from other areas in order to pay that. So that was a good thing, and it didn't have to turn into a legal battle. So I was extremely happy for that. And relatively, the turnaround was acceptable. I didn't know how long that was going to take. So those monies that we paid have been put back into the funds that we took them out of. The next one is the bond premium funds. In the work, I guess one other thing, I do want, and this came from Shane with Holting, our owner's rep that helped with that. Part of the reason that I think that claim went through as well as it did was because of the work that Casey did, putting together the file and the binder that we submitted that outlined everything in extremely well-formatted detail, exactly what we paid, why we paid it, and whatnot. And he was very complimentary of that work and made it clear that it was likely because of that the turnaround was so fast. So I do want to extend that thank you to you for that. In that work that we've been doing, Casey, looking at those funds, and we've had all these different projects, the elementary project, and finally finished the 2 classrooms. We've realized, or I realized, that there was still some money left from the bond premium. And if you remember the conversation that we had over 18 months ago when we decided to build those 2 extra classrooms, the estimate was that we were slightly short of bond funds to complete that project, and the board had agreed that we would utilize some of the funds that we had in order to complete that project. This is, it was exciting to me that we still had a little bit of bond money left, because it meant we didn't take any district money to complete that project. That said, we still have we got some bills today still from the Holting and from A&E finalizing that. I think we're done now, but I kind of thought we were done the other day. But those bond funds do have to be brought to zero. We cannot keep those funds. They have to be spent on bond projects, stuff that was outlined in the bond language. Been talking with superintendent about making a list of things, some things that we talked about. The safety on the doors, we talked about adding some more fob doors where the teachers, paras can come into those doors electronically, putting together some of those prices. Those items will then come, back to the board to decide exactly how to spend those remaining dollars. So again, that was from somebody that worked on that project, that bond, for so long and tried to verify that we were going to be able to build those 2 extra classrooms and not blow the budget, the school budget. I'm extremely satisfied that there's still a little money left in that bond. So just wanted to share that with everybody. We will continue to put together those lists of items, and then the board will decide how we want to utilize them.
You want that to
They
be an
do-
agenda item?
Yeah, they do have to be, it has to fall within the bond language. So it has to be something in the elementary. We have a little bit of use in the middle school because we did some of the remodeling there. But we'll just have to make sure that that's where those funds get spent. Okay, that's all I got on that. Moving on, consent action items, minutes and warrants.
I'll move to approve the minutes and warrants as presented.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes and warrants as presented. Is there any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passed. Action items, addition of high school boys baseball.
So this is hard to do outside of budget meeting. Besides the fact that we appreciate all the students here and their passion for baseball. One of the things that we do have to talk about is budget. One of the components that came into question is fundraising. So a few of the schools in the state that are starting baseball are fundraising for that. So we did get information from our attorneys and from MHSA that starting up programs with fundraising is usually recommended to be held at 1 year. I know, as you can see from this flyer that I shared with you guys, I was able to get this from Billings. They are fundraising on a 3-year term. We were recommended not to go beyond 1 year. So they did set up a 501(c) to make this happen. So they did have to open an account for that. And they do have folks that are taking on that work and effort of tracking this. And you can see the donation agreement that they put together, and then that they had some timelines of when the budget had to come into play. They shared some of the same concerns with fields. They're still not sure they have enough fields or field access because they have so much going on with softball and all of those things, but they're going to try to make it work between city leagues and different fields that they can find. They also shared that they were pretty concerned about the sustainability because they're going to have multiple teams in Billings. So it's quite a large price tag compared to ours. But they did share that they have the same concern of, how they'll continue baseball once they're not using the fundraising funds, or if they will be able to continue it after that. Because they're having budget challenges, as most of the schools in the state are right now. So that information was helpful. I put some of these out, so hopefully you guys got to see these if you're interested. And I think that it's really exciting that we have so many students interested and excited about baseball. We talked about with open enrollment whether it would be beneficial, if it would be something that would bring students to Townsend. We definitely don't want to lose any students because we aren't able to offer baseball. And unfortunately, our budget is tight. We're going to be okay, but we don't have a surplus of any kind. And I know we're negotiating right now, and we're having a hard time coming up with the funds we need to make our salaries comparable to our neighboring districts for our staff and teachers. So there's, one pot of money, and it's hard because there's a lot of different things we would like to do. So those are kind of my opening comments. Do you guys want to make comments and we can go into further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to propose a motion. I propose a motion for the Townsend School District to add boys high school baseball for the 2025 season, contingent on the team raising $20,000 in startup costs by July 31st, 2024, and the school responsible for the remainder of costs, approximately another $10,000. Ongoing costs would be approximately $20,000 each year, starting in 2026.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded, but I'm not going to try to repeat that.
Is there any chance you have that written?
I do. I'll get it to you.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to add boys baseball for the 2025 season under said provisions. Is there any discussion?
I have some questions. Actually, more directly towards Susie right now. Just for clarification, like on here, the advocates for Billings baseball, was that like a privately developed group? It wasn't developed through the school?
The athletic director that I got the information from said that he was not involved. It sounds like it's led by a parent group that's doing the fundraising and that opened the 501(c), as he described it to me. He said that he wasn't involved in it at all, that the district would step in and take over once they met that fundraising goal.
That was my next question, is if it was that organization that opened up that 501(c)(3 and it was.
That's my understanding. I have his direct contact information now. And I know that we had a hard time getting a hold of the athletic directors because they were at basketball tournaments at state and things like that. So we were also hoping to get some information from Missoula on how they set theirs up. So, but Mark was amazing and to talk to, and said he'd be happy to go into more detail or put us in touch with the group that's leading this. So.
With the $10,000 Is that something you think we could cover if they raise the first 20?
It's a matter of shuffling things around. This year, luckily, we still have a little bit of ESSER funds. We do have a lot of needs, like I said. We're covering the curriculum purchases, the materials, and the software programs that we need to operate everyday class and instruction with the remainder of those funds for next year. So we will be putting those to that. And then, sorry, let me think through this. I guess it depends on where we end up in negotiations. And, you know, something else might have to go. I mean, it just depends. If we add $10,000 in activities and athletics, then we might have to take that from somewhere else. And there's not a whole lot of, that's what's tricky about school budgets, is that a majority of it is salaries. And then we have supplies and materials, curriculum. We have the athletics and activities, and there's not a whole lot of other areas. We've been going through the budget for the last couple months so we could give the board the best information on the budget to make an informed decision tonight as possible. And I've worked with Pam and Casey and everyone at the school to see what we, you know, if there's anything that we have that we're not using, if there's anything we could cut or slim down or trim down so that we could potentially support this program, as well as see what money we have left for raises for teachers and other staff. So I didn't really answer your question, but it's just a matter of adjusting things. We might have to cut out a program. You know, we have software learning programs that cost about that much, or the gym floors we've been talking about. The gym floors cost, we just got an estimate. The company we used to use is no longer doing them. We just got the estimate for $9,743, and we were talking about going to every other year of doing the gym floors in order to try to save $10,000. So that's an example of the kinds of things where we can adjust or cut. So
Bless you.
right now, it's hard to say without having some of the questions we still have that make it hard is that we don't know how many students we are going to have for kindergarten. So we're not sure how many sections of kindergarten or classrooms, you know, so how many teachers we're going to need to have for that. Like I said, we're not sure where we're going to land in negotiations, if we're going to go with the gym floors or not. And so there's just still some areas that we can't have finalized in the budget at this point. I'd say if there was a way in the first year to fully fund it with fundraising, because we have 1 year to do so, that'd be great. I know Billings is fundraising for 3 years, which we've been recommended we don't do by legal. So the advice we got from the attorneys was that a lot of schools are putting it into policy. So a new sport, you can fundraise for the first year of a new sport. I know Billings said do 3, and that's just not the advice that we got. So if we could fully raise it, that'd be great. And then hopefully we can make adjustments to sustain the program in the future. But obviously the initial year, there's a lot more that we need to do with, as Mr. Bowman has informed us, the bats are very expensive and those different kinds of components. So.
Susie, would 1 year potentially give us an idea of what the draw might be for out of district? Would we be able to see that in the first year? If we were to propose that, I mean, we could draw in enough that would cover those costs potentially.
Draw as a student.
Students, yeah, out of district students. I mean, is that, am I thinking of that right? I guess is my question is, if it does draw in, it could help cover, could add to the budget to cover that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Predict that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it's a high quality program that we're able to run and word gets out and there is interest from other schools and other schools don't also add baseball that are nearby, we could see some additional student enrollment by adding baseball. I don't know for sure, or when we would see that pick up.
I guess where I was thinking is if this is however partially funded or fully funded to fundraisers, within that first year, there's the potential to see whether there was enough interest to pull out of district.
Right. The other thing that would be interesting is to get a concrete cost, because obviously we came up with the best projection of budget we could. We calculated down to the mileage of the umpires, and Mr. Bowman and I went back and forth on that spreadsheet quite a few times to get it as close as we could so that we could give a realistic and also conservative number to the board. So we don't know what the official price tag is. So that's one thing, is if we don't make it to the tournament, we might be closer to the $20,000 mark. But if we had made it to tournament and everything, would be closer to the 30 from what our projections showed. So
Could we add, if our numbers change or are not as high as we are expecting or projecting, could we add something that we could also withdraw at that point, not just contingent on fundraising?
There's a clause, did you see the sentence that was in here? It said, after the initial 3-year period, the school board may consider providing financial support for these sports based on their success and popularity. Would that be kind of?
Well, no, I'm thinking if we get to this July deadline and everything's looking good on their end, but things are deteriorating for us. I don't know. I guess I would like to.
In athlete numbers or finances?
Finances, yeah. I mean, I don't want to commit to something we can't cover. But at the same time, we've got a whole team ready to go, and I hate to.
I'm going to jump in, just my discussion comments. So this is forced me to really get into the school budget, and then, wow, what an eye opener. Just when I thought I was good at finances. Yeah, so, and because I wanted to be sure that I could come here and look the community in the eye and say, I've done my due diligence, and I strongly believe we can make it this next year with 10,000. There is enough, like, as not to put words in Susie's mouth, or paraphrase, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there is wiggle room this first year. The concern for me is in 2026, because that's where, and ongoing years, we have to sustain the program. So I wanted to share with you all the lens that I looked at this through, and everyone needs to know, I don't have a son that's going to be playing baseball. I don't have a grandson, I don't think, that will be playing baseball anytime soon. So I really don't have a dog in the fight, pun intended, when it comes to personal nature. But I will say 31 years ago, I sat where Colby and Mason was, along with my childhood friend Craig Kiddo, and we posed to the board boys golf, and they blessed off on it. And that next year we took third in state. And by far, those are my most fondest memories, laughing with Craig out on the golf course. And tragically, he passed away here a few years ago. So it's about the kids, and it's about That's always number one, first and foremost. And I'm going to start talking about the business side of things, but make no mistake, for me, it's about you all. It's about providing opportunities for those memories. Because on the business side of things, there's 20 of the 27 signed up that are not doing any spring sports right now. So in my mind, that's 20 that are at risk of us losing when they turn 16, 17, 18. This, to me, having this program could be the glue that holds one or two of these kids in our school because of this program. And like anything positive that we have, it can be contagious. And before you know it, they're recruiting more buddies to play baseball with them from other towns that don't have it because they mismanaged their budget. And I want to just give a quick sidebar to Jason Noyes and Susie for managing our budget so well, so we're not in the pickle that Three Forks is in right now, right? So great job. And now we have the ability to do this opportunity when no one in the area can have that opportunity. I think with all the remote work being done in our society now, it's going to draw one or two more boys to come play baseball. If we get one or two more boys, guess what? Now we're self-sustaining. So from a business perspective, if we do get one or two new recruits, we're break even, pretty much. Break even. What if we get 3 or 4? Right? So that's how I'm looking at it, because I challenge the teachers, the union, hey, you are part of the solution. We've focused so long on how we're cutting costs. How it kills me that we're telling our teachers, you got $200 in supplies. I'm like, you kidding me? These teachers are the most talented we have, and we're hamstringing them by saying you only got $200 in supplies. We can't cut expenses anymore. We have to look at how we're going to bring sustained more high school students in our school to bring the dollars up. And that's going to be able to pay for the raises. That's the answer, because we can't cut anymore. So this is a way that we're going to bring in more income to the school. Transformational, more opportunities, smiles on faces, great memories out there. Maybe even a state trophy down the road. Who knows, right? No pressure, boys. So with that said, it's a different perspective. This next year I'm comfortable with, Vanessa. It's really where it comes into play is 2026, because we're going to have to make some hard decisions if we don't get our numbers up in the high school. And even with those hard decisions, we'll be able to cash flow with this program, but it's going to be hard decisions. And I hope we don't get there. I hope we get our numbers up in the high school. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
I just had the similar thoughts, but the one reason I was looking at it from a financial perspective was the cuts of the radio. So in the assumption we no longer have a radio, there should be 8 to 10,000 there, so we're not having annual operating costs. So there could be funding potentially.
I already took that out. That's already reflected. So what we did with our ESSER funding was cover costs like the janitorial supplies and cleaning supplies, curriculum, professional development, and those things. That's why we are still doing well, and we didn't spend it all at once. So we're able to use those funds to pay forward for our materials for next year. So we're going to be we'll be all right next year. However, those funds, have now gone away. So we're going to have to start spending more on those areas that we've been doing all right with ESSER funds. And then there's been multiple grants that we've written over the last few years, targeted grants. Obviously we know about the after school, the 21st century and those, but we've written multiple grants that have offset costs and provided professional development. The safety grant that we received, all of those things, we're able to offset costs from the general fund budget, and we'll continue to do that work as much as we can. but we can't ever plan and rely on having those funds, or we'll end up in the same situation our neighboring districts are in because they used their funds for salaries, or other things that now they can't find a way to sustain. And so then you end up having to make cuts to staffing and those kinds of things. So, no, we took all of that into consideration. The budget is reflective of all those crunches that we've made. But I also agree. I'm super excited about the students. It's about the kids and what's best for them. I just know there's a lot of important factors in the budget, and it's, the same conversation took place at the curriculum meeting about a program that cost $10,000. Lexia, the one that we referenced, and the teachers talked about what a difference it makes for students being able to read by third grade. And so, it's just hard when we look at all the different options and what do you take out and what do you keep. So I do think we can all, we've got a great team and we can put our heads together and find a solution in the area to make it work.
Usually. Can I amend the motion?
You can.
I amend the current proposed motion that the baseball program would need to be solely fundraised for the first year and to include the cost of the clause, and this is in this pamphlet, Casey, that the school board may consider providing financial support for these sports based on the success and popularity.
The amendment requires a second.
I'll second.
So it's been moved and second to amend the motion as described. You guys keep putting out these big, long statements.
I want to be clear.
Okay. Anything to add to that?
I'm done talking
Okay.
for now.
All right. I guess my biggest regret tonight here is, of course, to the young people in the audience, because I will just be forever remembered as the guy that was against baseball. And I don't like to be that guy. I'm not against baseball. It was the one sport I was honestly even remotely good at as a kid. I'm not against athletics. I'm not against opportunities for our kids. But in this seat, in this role, my responsibility, as I see it, is to academic achievement. And academic achievement comes from hiring and retaining quality teachers and keeping our classrooms the best they can be. Providing you guys the opportunity to leave here with the best education that you can. Extracurricular activities, that's what we're talking about. And when we talk about extra and we talk about tight, strained budgets, it's the extra things that have to be looked at first to cut if that's necessary, or we certainly can't look at adding extra things to an already strained budget. I've sat on the negotiations committee for too long, I guess is the bottom way to put it. It's not fun. I enjoy working with the teachers. I enjoy the conversations we have, but trying to explain to teachers why there's no money to add a higher percentage raise year after year is disheartening and frustrating. And I can't vote to add another extracurricular activity when we're in that position that we are. We are a Class B school, 180 students. I think if you look at the extracurricular opportunities that we offer, we do a pretty darn good job. we offer 3 sports in the fall, 3 in the winter, 3 in the spring. And if you break that down into girls and boys, those numbers, spread out even farther. I think we do a pretty good job. I realize the kids here tonight are looking for a different one. It's not the one, they want one that we don't have, and I understand that. Fundraising and sponsorships gives me just an unsettled heartburn that it's not sustainable. And I do a lot of fundraising throughout the year for different clubs, different groups. We have an amazing community, but at some point, they're gonna say no more. And I'm afraid we're getting to that point on some things that we ask a lot and they give a lot, but there will come a point that there can be no more. On the district clerk side, when we start talking about adding sponsorships and fundraisers, we just added another element to that office. All of a sudden she's got to be a bill collector. And what happens if we get told that we're going to collect X amount of money, but it doesn't show up? What do we do then? People that fundraise and sponsor things, what happens if their kid isn't the one that got to play on the team like they thought they were going to get? Is that fundraising sponsorship going to disappear? I don't know, but it's something I got to consider. And I am really reluctant to enter into any more agreements, partnerships on fields, equipment around the county that we don't have control of, and things that we can't control, the costs and maintenance and the upkeep of it. We've got a couple, at least one right now, that it just doesn't go very well. It tends to be that everybody's in favor of taking these on, but as soon as it comes time to put more money into them or to replace something or to upgrade something, then, well, the school's the one using it, the school's putting all the effort into it, it should just be the school's responsibility. And that troubles me that we are reliant on outside entities to make this program successful. So, unfortunately, that is my position on this at this time. If the board doesn't have any more comments, I will open it up to public comment.
I do have one alibi, Jason. So when we talk about how we're going to generate more income for the school, this is another aspect that I looked at is we have 177 youth baseball. Is that correct? Give or
That's
take?
correct. That number's grown a little bit even. I think we're at 180, I think was the comment last night at that board. Yeah, we'll call 177 just to have a number. Yeah.
So where I'm going with this, and this may come into play in the very near future. And in order to take care of our teachers and give them the raises that they so need, we very well may have to go back to the citizens of this county and ask for a levy or to raise our base to be able to do that. And so what I ask is for each of those 177 families plus these 27 that are here, that they reach out to their friends and neighbors and say, hey, we need everyone on board here. We need to take care of our teachers. The school board's taking care of us. And that might be another strategy to help increase the income so we can pay some of these salaries. So if this does pass tonight, I do ask that. And you're talking from a business owner that hates taxes. My taxes just went up and it's pulling my hair out because I can't figure out how the taxes that went up are coming into our school. It's driving me nuts. I'm reaching out to the state people. They can't give me a direct answer. No one knows. It's lost in the matrix somewhere. So we have to figure it out. I'm still committed to actually getting the answers out to the community on where our tax dollars are going. But that may be a solution in the near future. Because I want to clarify another thing I said too is whether baseball passes tonight or not, and we're looking at whether it's 10,000 or 20,000, and we don't get any new, we're still going to face tough decisions in 2026. That's not going to change. The $10,000 or $20,000 we're talking about tonight, the deficit that we're looking at once ESSER finishes up is big. So I want to throw that out there to the community that we have to be vocalizing these things. I hate taxes just like the next guy, but that may be part of the solution. My hope is we get our high school numbers up. This will be all moot point. We'll all be happy campers here in 2 or 3 years.
So I will open it up for public comment. I would like to put a little sideboards. Obviously, we know you're here and support baseball. So I don't necessarily need everybody to just stand up and say that. But if you have something that you would like to add to the discussion that, you know, we haven't considered, haven't thought about, now's the time. Okay,
I'll stand. I'll just say, I personally have withdrawn a high school student myself, so those are numbers. Mainly due the lack of dual credit opportunities, so she's doing dual credit. I have another high schooler who's here for baseball, and I'm an experienced homeschool mom. And I'll just say from my experiences that when we take these things from the kids, it's just another reason why to be here, because I can't do it at home.
any further discussion? Discussion? Okay, so we will vote on the amendment to the motion first. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're gonna have to do this different. Roll call. All right.
So clarification on the process.
We have to vote on the amendment. If the amendment passes, then it becomes the main motion and we have to vote again. If the amendment fails, we still vote on the main motion that was originally made.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're voting on the amendment. Okay, Vanessa, just say for or against.
4.
Chase,
Against.
Or against.
and I am against. So the amendment fails. Now we will vote on the main motion as it was originally. Can you go ahead and just read that again, please?
I propose a motion for the Townsend School District to add boys high school baseball for the 2025 season and ongoing contingent on the team raising $20,000 in startup costs no later than July 31st, 2024. And the school is responsible for the remainder of the cost, approximately another $10,000. Ongoing costs would be approximately $20,000 in 2026.
Okay, I have to ask again, is there any discussion on that main motion?
Can I ask a question? Whose responsibility is it to raise the money? I mean, up until the point where we have a coach and an established team, I mean, who's in charge of raising this money? I guess would be my question.
I would say
The
we
team has to raise it.
if the motion passes, Mr. Rock, then we basically task that to the team. And we figure out, there's gonna be a lot of implied tasks that we've got to figure out and work through, just like we went to the 4-day school. Didn't have a 100% plan. This will be the same thing.
Well, my fear is July rolls around, much like we've done with an MOU and everything else, and everybody thought it was somebody else doing it. I think it needs to be laid out who's in charge of fundraising and whose responsibility it is to get this ball rolling. I mean, it's hard to hire a coach when you don't know if you're gonna have a team. It's hard to have a team raise money when they don't know
They're gonna have a team.
yeah, I just would hate to see that, and I just think there's some things probably very soon if this were to pass, I think very quickly, those things need to be established.
Absolutely.
Because if you sit around on it, July's gonna roll around awful quick.
One of the things I noticed in this agreement from Billings is that they do charge an overhead fee on any of the donations made, and that they require an actual form that you complete. So if the funding is there and the form is completed, we can potentially look at, for your district clerk concern. And then if it gets returned less than 1% administrative fee should fundraising not be met.
I don't believe it's going through the district office. It says the Education Foundation
In that instance,
in this instance. I wouldn't recommend that it goes through our district office either.
So it needs to be treated as an outside entity like this.
And I don't know that we can fundraise in that kind of format. I think it has to be like this. I don't know. That's from my understanding is that they had to open this group of parents that's leading the charge in the fundraising. They opened the 501(c)(3) for it. But I mean, I guess all those details can be worked out.
okay, any further discussion on the motion? Discussion? I'll do a roll call. Vanessa?
4.
Chase?
For.
Daniel?
Against?
Jason?
Or
And I am against. Motion passes 3-2. Thank you all for coming. Moving on, discontinuation of KGG radio and notification transition to
I
streaming.
thought you guys were all gonna stay for this for a minute there. You missed your cue.
Now the work begins.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So, as we talked about, I have the updated survey results. They really haven't changed. Sorry, I guess I'll wait a minute. Keep hollering at you. All right, as we looked through the budget, something that was identified early on this year was the cost of the radio station to the district. So as you know, we were very concerned with the community impact and the use of the radio station. We did find that the major use was for our athletics and then some folks that enjoy the music that's on there. And from the survey results we had, which has been out for quite a while, and we have made multiple attempts. I know the newspapers put some things out there. We've posted it multiple times to get information. We've only had 47 results. So 60% of the listeners were 31 to 50, 32% were 51 to 70, and most people listen to the sporting events. 70%, 30% listen to the music. And they listen to it on the radio 46% of the time and online 53% of the time. I found that interesting because hopefully at least, over half of the users will still be listening with us through online. I do have a friend in town. I'm going to have to figure out how to set up something so he does not, lose this opportunity to listen to our games. Because right after one of our meetings, I went over there and he was just sitting right by that radio listening. So I do, hope that we don't lose those folks. But with the results of the radio and, not having a lot of folks respond that they're willing to help out or that they feel there's a need to continue the radio, it seems fiscally responsible to let the radio in this fashion go. It was, started off with the county in an agreement that we have here as part of the emergency system and the DES. And we have reached out and been to multiple meetings with the Broadwater County Disaster and Emergency Services. I go to those regularly. They have no need for this radio station. I did hear that there might be a new radio station in town. I don't know any details about that, but so we do need to let them know according to this contract, we do need to notify them within 60 days that we are going to discontinue. And so that is some component of this that we need to take care of. And this was signed in 2011. So that is part of this process that we discontinue, notify them, and transition to streaming. So we did put some funds in the budget, just minimal, $3,000 for starting up the streaming app to purchase the equipment for the first year. After that, we think it will be less. However, we did also write this into the Advanced Opportunities Grant because it will be a streaming app that could also be used for the broadcast media classes. And so we may be able to offset that with Advanced Opportunities Grant funds that we were recently awarded. So hopefully it will be very minimal, if any, cost to the district in the future to use the streaming app. And that's how we will move forward with broadcasting activities. So we will, if the board approves tonight, we'll work on a transition timeline, get that notice put out there, let the radio station and company know that we've been working with, and start investing in setting up the new platform. So I would recommend that we terminate or discontinue KDGZ, notify those as necessary per the contract, which is DES, and set up timeline for transition.
Chair, I make a motion to discontinue KDGZ radio.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to discontinue the KDGZ radio and notify those needed for contract and begin the transition to an online streaming platform for broadcasting games. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to make one note on this. I received one phone call, and typically I get a lot more phone calls on things. And I feel bad because the person that I talked with, I know they listen to this radio all the time. And on a personal note, my grandmother, who's in a nursing home here for a little over a year, she listened to that radio station religiously. And it was just near and dear to my heart that I go visit her, and 98.3 was playing, and love those old songs. Comes down to the business aspect of it, and where it came down to me, as tough as this decision is for me to make this motion, we got to get on with the times, and we have other priorities. So I just wanted to say that it's a tough thing, but I think with technology and streaming and with the new radio station coming on board, I think everything's going to be okay for those that are listening to it quite frequently.
I want to make one quick comment too, if that's all right,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Mr. Rock for his efforts in trying to make the most of it while we had it and utilizing it with students. They've been doing the Holocaust was awesome on there. Obviously, we'll find these new ways to make that happen as a podcast or something different, but I appreciate you making use of it while we had it this year. You even started doing more and more to see if we could gain more interest or get more people to take the survey and those kinds of things. So thank you for your efforts in that and using what we were paying for. So we got something out of it this year, more so than just the broadcasting and that. And then I know Luke has put a ton of time and effort into researching the equipment, so we knew equipment costs and really digging into the budget and put different options that we may have. And I know you helped him out with that, Joe. So I just want to say thank you to you guys for all the work you've done to do whatever we could with this. I know you had to go out of your way to get things on the radio when we did need to do those things, and just appreciate you for all the work that you put in this area.
I know Joe Horn plans on, he's got a new multimedia class and they're just having a blast, but they'll do some you know, they know this is what's potentially a thing that's gonna happen, so they're gonna try to get a few things on there as a send off, and then obviously transfer those things to an online source too. So, yeah, it's still a good learning opportunity while it's here for a little while longer.
It might be a good community outreach project if we can have those students set up an iPad or something at the nursing homes, and some of our friends that we know really like listening to those that don't have the technology or capability to get on an app necessarily. So
Discussion. Yeah, for myself, just looking at dollars spent versus benefit gained, it's not realistic for us in the situation we are to continue with this. I know the biggest question that's come to me is, are we still gonna have a way for people to listen to the games? And I just want to reiterate that, yes, we will find another format. There is another much less expensive format for that to happen. And so we will still find a way to make sure that people get that information for that.
You're not off the hook yet.
Oh, I was putting in a resignation.
Any further discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passed. Approved bus use for 4-H exchange group.
all right, I see Mr. Beatty's here. Would you like to present?
Sure. So, for those that don't know me, my name is Tom Beatty. I am one of the 4-H exchange leaders. And I'm here tonight to request use of a bus during the week that we host our kids from Pennsylvania. So, we have a few days that we will be taking them around the state, not necessarily the state, but the specific dates I won't go into, but Helena, Gates of the Mountains area, Yellowstone Park, and around, let's see, sorry, the notes. We'll pick them up from the airport in Bozeman, in Virginia City, Nevada City, that sort of thing. So, as we requested in 2021, we had hosted another group from Missouri, and I'm here to do that same thing this evening. So,
22.
Sorry, they all.
I move to approve the bus use for the 4-H in June.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the bus use for 4-H in June. Is there any discussion?
I was gonna say, hopefully not anytime before the end of May. Jeremy Rice's head might explode.
Yes, I talked to Jeremy.
I know. Good.
So the caveat on that is 4-H will cover all of the expenses.
Correct. So, how it worked before, so if we get approval, then we get the approval. Then we approve our drivers, whoever will drive through those few days, including their driver's names, addresses, so forth. The locations the bus will be traveling, the dates and times of driving. Then we will seek approval from the county where the county commissioners for the bus to add to the county's insurance policy. And we cover, so we need the VIN, the bus VIN, make, model, et cetera, and then add it to the VIN policy, or the policy as well. So keeps the school out of that liability issue.
Does that include fuel?
Yeah, we will pay for fuel, obviously.
Needs new tires, what you have it.
Yeah.
Fruit there,
You better make sure the air conditioner doesn't go down on you, 'cause I can't pay for another one.
A couple of drivers or just,
Yeah, a couple of drivers.
okay, would you mind sharing those dates with me so I don't book summer drives?
Absolutely,
Thank you.
yes.
And if you leave it up to Mr. Schindel, you'll be in Peely, so.
Any further discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passed. Approve Corbridge Financial Rock Plan 403B for employees.
I will turn this
Yeah,
over
we'll
to
let
Casey,
Casey take
please,
that.
and thank you.
One of our fringe benefits are the 403B retirement plan. We offer 4 different, I'm gonna use the word vendor, I don't know if that's the right one. One of them, Mr. Audette with Corbridge, would like to offer our employees not only and I always get these wrong, so he wants to add a product line of the Roth IRA to them. Right now, they only have the pre-tax option. They would like an after-tax option, which is a line of service. And in order to do that, because of the nature of this, we will have to ask for you to approve the contract extension of adding that product line.
Is there an added cost to the district?
None, nope.
When she first approached me about this, I thought I don't think this should have to come before the board because we're already using this vendor. It's just another product. But in due diligence, I did reach out to MTSBA and did ask the question, and he said it is best if the board just gives it the blessing. It's not something the employees have to do. They're not required to do it. It's just another option for him. But he said it was best if we ran it and had board approval for it. So that's why it's before you today.
I'll move to approve the Corbridge Financial Rock Plan 403B for employees.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Corbridge Financial Roth Plan 403B for employees. Is there any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Discontinuation of the live streaming of the board meetings.
So- You can go ahead. As you know, we have this also in a policy coming up, but this was recommended that we also take formal action in this fashion. I'll let you explain that.
So in last year's legislature, they changed some legal requirements. Section 2-3-217 MCA requires us to have both an audio and a video recording of board meetings, that no longer just written minutes are acceptable. So in gaining that information and researching, thinking we were already doing that, come to the realization that what we're doing is not fully compliant, because our live stream, we are not allowing for public comment in real time. And that is a requirement if you live stream it. I don't think it is logical and feasible for us to continue to live stream and try and coordinate accepting public comment throughout the meeting. My suggestion is to go back, encourage people that want to engage in discussion in the board meetings to come to the board meeting and be engaged in it that way. We will obviously fulfill the legal requirement of recording them so that people will have access to them. I think it's within 24 hours that it has to be posted so people can watch the live recording. It will just not be in live real time. So that is my recommendation, that we move forward and cease and desist with the live stream that we are not compliant in doing right now.
So it's still going to be recorded audio and visual. It just won't be
audio
live.
and visual,
Right.
just not live.
And it'll still go out every month.
Within 24 hours, we have to post the recording to the website. So people will be able to access it. They just can't. Right now, we're not complying with the open meeting law and having people be able to engage in the conversation. That's where we're falling short.
I thought this went into effect
July
I
1.
mean, there is,
July,
there is
yeah.
a possibility to have them be able to interact the way we're currently doing it. However, that's the chairman's decision.
Well, it's the board's
Board's
decision.
The,
I don't, we're getting in, obviously, again, it goes back to budget and requiring, we have to pay somebody to sit here and do that. We would have to find the right avenue for those comments to come in. Somebody has to read them, and you gotta filter them, to be honest, because it has to comply with the statement that I read at the beginning of the meeting. So somebody has to be able to read those and filter out anything that might not be allowed in a public meeting. And I think it's too complicated, I guess, is the bottom line. I think we need people to come to the meetings that want to engage in the conversation.
I make a motion to discontinue the streaming meetings, board meetings procedures as long as we post them recorded online.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to discontinue the live streaming of school board meetings. Is there any discussion?
I don't think it's that difficult to actually live stream and or request public comment, sign up in advance of the meeting. So you know how many commenters you would have, as well as the potential to offer that public comment opportunity during the meeting. That's how we operate at a state level, where public comment can range in person to online, but those that make an online comment would actually have to sign up in advance of the meeting. So you would know going into it if you do have any public commenters. And then if they choose to speak on that topic, you can shut it down just like you would here at the in-person meeting.
Discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Do it, just be safe. Vanessa?
4.
Jason? 4. Jason, 4. Daniel?
Against.
Motion passes 3-2. Approve extended time to use excess vacation.
This is very standard process done annually. We try to keep this very minimal and make sure that people have the opportunity to use their vacation. However, Mr. Riddle always has interesting things happening, like the popcorn the other night in the library. And, him and Mr. Rock and I are here when it floods over Christmas or whatever else might be happening when he's supposed to be on vacation or not here. So it's hard to keep his hours down. And Thomas Graham has some also. So we would just ask that you approve their extensions so they have a little bit more time to get their vacation used before they lose it.
All 3? Or just the 2 mentioned?
Just the 2 mentioned. Jim Riddle and Thomas Graham.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the
Sorry,
extension
did you say
of the excess leave for Jim Riddle and Thomas Graham.
Oh, she's gonna be able to use hers.
I'll second. Been moved and seconded to approve the extension of excess leave for Jim Riddle and Thomas Graham. Is there any discussion?
Just
I actually
no
do.
boy.
I was gonna say, I know one of the letters we got was
Did you get
highlighting the
Thomas's
fact that
letter?
they could take their extra Friday, concession, take that leave, just that we
Yeah, you would.
monitoring that going forward, and
Sitting at it.
the best time to do projects when there's not students actually here.
Should we write that in there, that is pending and returning?
Sure.
Thomas Graham actually has not submitted a letter of inquiry, and maybe you could make that pending.
Yeah, we will note that. Any discussion?
Yeah, just clarification on that. Is this one thing where we have to offer to everyone? Or I guess why are we just, they're the only ones, what's the process, I guess?
Well, most people don't tend to accumulate excess. Jim Riddle just does because of the nature of his job. It is a fairly typical thing for Jim because just over time he's accumulated that much.
We don't have other employees that have accumulated that were,
Generally not.
okay.
In the past, we've had Wanda, for example, but since we went to the 4-day week, she's not accumulating the excess. From my understanding, that made a difference on, is that correct, Ms. Heverin?
I'm sorry, what is that?
Mrs. Moldenhauer is no longer accumulating as much time. So for example, she's not on this chart where she may have been in years past.
Right,
So,
yes.
Okay, any discussion? Discussion?
sorry to put you on this.
No, I was answering Jonathan's question. Amy's question.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passed. Resolution of intent to impose an increase in levies.
So this is the document that was added in your packet that Casey passed out. And I want to give her and Pam a huge thank you for their diligent work to get this done with much attention to detail and rapidly as well. In years past, we've had to have a special meeting to do this because we just get the information, the first week of March, and then it's hard to have this all pulled together by this board meeting. But with their expertise working together, they were able to get this accomplished so we can get it done at tonight's meeting. So that's excellent. And the special ed team and others jumped in to help figure out the tuition. So I appreciate that as well. I can talk to some of the different line items and what they mean, or I don't know if you have anything you want to highlight, Casey?
I don't.
Okay.
Well, I think the big point of this is just our requirement to fulfill and tell people that this is something that happens. We don't actually set these levies until the August board meeting, budget meeting. This is just a requirement that says this is what we will do. And I believe these are at 100%. Is that
100% of.
These
the
are
max?
the max.
The max.
yeah.
What we're telling you is this is the max that we have the ability to do. And so that you're prepared for that. The actual setting of those levies happens at the August board meeting. This is simply a notification of that.
And it's one we do every year.
And we do it
Every year. It's been in
It's
the
not new.
newspaper for years and years. Every spring, it is required to be in the newspaper. And it is just, a forewarning, letting people know it's required by law that this is posted in the newspaper, that this is the max that the school could levy in the permissive levy areas. These are levies that do not require a vote, and they are based on very complicated calculations that are through spreadsheets that have to do with, like, transportation has to do with miles that the buses are traveling. Tuition has to do with special ed students. Every student we have that has a certain level of needs has to be entered into the spreadsheet, and then this number is calculated based off of that. So these are numbers that are based off of the formulas from the state, not just numbers that we select. We have to put all of the information in, then this is generated. Do you have more to add to that?
Oh, it just should be noted that this is based on this year's taxable value. That will also change.
So sometimes this gets some interest when it's in the paper, and then we don't have anyone show up for the budget meeting in the summer. That is when the actual decisions are made.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the resolution of intent to increase non-voted levies as determined by the board.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution of intent to increase non-voting levies as determined by the board. Is there any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passed. Personnel.
Okay, I do need to add a few changes on this one. So I will walk us through this. So for resignations and retirements, we have some incredible folks on here I want to give my thanks to. And we are sad to see Wendy Gravely, Kim Gilligan, and Alan Severide leave. I know they've been with the district for many years, and I've enjoyed working with them, and others might want to make comments as well when we get to discussion. Jenny Lee Bird, assistant volleyball coach, is also going to be stepping down. We have had a couple of resignation letters come in this week that I need to add. Steve, I'm just gonna say Oj. Ojala, for the record. I just call him Oj. And Audrey Martin. So Steve as Oj as custodian, and Audrey Martin from adult ed and facilities.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve the resignations as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resignations as presented. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I would just want to thank those teachers, Wendy and Kim. I'm gonna miss them dearly. They've been a great part of this team and have brought a lot to our elementary, so they're gonna be missed. And thank you for all your years.
I'd like to add as well, I know Alan Severide's dedicated a lot of time and hours to our driver's education program and has done this for many, many years as well. Would like to thank him for all of his work in those areas. And same with Jenny Lee Bird, she's contributed so much to the volleyball team in the high school for almost as many years as I've been here. And definitely a very dedicated coach with all of the students' best interests at heart. So we will miss Jenny Lee and we wish her the best chasing her kids around at all their various activities to come. So.
Do we not have anyone running the adult education program then?
No, we do not. So I want to thank Donna Cutshaw for stepping up. She's not in the admin office a whole lot, but when she is, she's trying to help coordinate the facilities schedule with Miss Heverin. So they're trying to keep up with it and stay on top of it. We also need to update the website and those links for the forums and make sure they're getting to the right people. But Sherry and Donna have stepped up and been trying to help coordinate that. And then we have been able to launch a couple of adult ed courses. Mr. Watson, had a lot of people interested. And so we just went ahead and made Facebook posts, and he is doing woodworking and welding. Do you remember which? I should have that written down.
I probably have an email or something.
Yeah, off the top of my head. But he does have an adult ed course open right now, and folks are just welcome to come and work with him in the shop. So that is happening. And then of course we have a really robust book club that Kay does an amazing job with. We have that going on. Pickleball and our open gym are going on. And then I do have a few other folks that are interested in having classes that we're hoping to still be able to offer this spring. So I'll reopen that position. And right now we're just kind of working as a team to get what we can done.
Any discussion?
Just a huge thank you to those on the list. That's lifetime of commitment and a lifetime of memories. So just a huge thank you to all of them that put that dedication in.
Yeah, I just want to reciprocate that. They've tremendously touched my girls in just ways I can't describe in words. So thank you for your dedication and service to our kids. Much appreciated. And God bless in your future endeavors.
Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Employment.
So we have paraprofessional Hallie Rhoda, tennis volunteer Lexi Howard, And substitute K5 paraprofessional cadence clerk.
I think there's a note that needs to go with.
That's the, yes, substitute K5 paraprofessional is for cadence clerk. Is that the?
Yep.
Did I get it all in there? Okay.
I'll move to approve the hires as presented pending successful background checks.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the hires as presented pending successful background checks. Is there any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed.
I just want to mention, I don't know the others well, but we had a great interview with Hallie and, am I saying it right? I always want to say Haley, but it's Hallie, right? She is a bright young lady that is studying to be a teacher, and we're excited to have her getting this great experience, and she's new to Townsend, so just want to welcome her on board.
Okay, policies, good stuff.
Now we get to the fun stuff. All right. So we're getting close to the end of our policies that have come out of legislation. But every time I think that, we get a new little package. So we'll move through some more tonight. I did not edit these because they were pretty straightforward. So I'll do that after I take your notes and get them to Chris Goss in a timely manner. So on 1420, I will just make the changes to reflect that we will be posting the audio and video after the meeting and not live streaming. Are there any other areas of question or concern?
Are we still gonna have, we don't have written minutes anymore, so we can timestamp the minutes on what point in time?
The audio
discussion
minutes.
occurred?
Mm-hmm.
Is there, well, what I'm saying, there's no point to take written minutes, we can use the actual document as the recorded.
Yes, I would guess that would be a great decision.
Casey.
I think Casey's time could be better spent if we, and it's, as you can tell, it's optional. So yes, I would agree to do the audio recording as the official minutes.
Or if there's, like if you had a one-page summary that just had the agenda topics with a timestamp of this is what the time in the video that discussion occurred. Something like that. I'm just trying to understand some of the policy pieces here, but also.
There is some way to even do that through technology. It'll separate out different sections for you. So I think that's a good idea.
And we might be able to get I'm sure we can look at some other districts that might already have it in place and see how they're doing it.
Actually, that says we have 5 business days to do it.
Does it say 5?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it's sooner, but
Yeah.
All right.
What was saying on that one?
so we do start, right?
Not in entirety. So you just have to put the times of the conversations from the way I understand it.
Okay.
Basically the agenda, like put times next to the agenda items. So people know, like, if they're just trying to watch one section of the meeting, they can go to 7:55 or whatever.
Summary of discussion.
During the meeting, you would just put the times we start each conversation next to the agenda items. Anything else?
In that minute section, it talks about that optional language we're talking about.
Yeah, so we would need to select that.
Right.
Right.
That's what I marked. I guess if you guys want to make a formal, do
Is
you
that,
agree to that?
does this just apply to just the regular board meetings, or does this committee meetings as well? Could you do something very similar?
I think the committee meeting, I think anything public meeting wise, I think has to be recorded. Yeah, it's not just the main board meeting.
Does it say anything about a quorum or?
I thought it was anytime there was a board member present, it had to be recorded.
I was afraid, a quorum.
Does it say quorum?
Here's a section here. No business shall be transacted at any meeting of the board unless a quorum of its members.
So that would probably exclude the committee meetings then, because we don't have quorum.
That's how I know, I know I know that the state boards do not record committee meetings. But I know school boards are a bit different, so I'm not saying I have the
I was just thinking
answer.
It might be easier to get minutes out of it, just post the audio recording of the committee meeting. I'm
Yeah,
not worried about it.
definitely nothing would say that we couldn't.
It's easier for us to know what's going on in committee meetings, this discussion as well.
As long as we get somebody trained to.
I think it's just as simple as put the tape recorder in the room and play it and then do.
No, you have to.
We have the video as well. There are some devices out there that can do that. I know that when Dick Anderson was working with us, they used a device that would do video and audio transmission that was very simple. I haven't yet dug into whether or not you can actually record from that device.
Does your Chromebook have a camera?
Say again?
Does your Chromebook have a camera?
Like if you did the suggestion that Mr. Carr had this morning was to use Chromebooks for each one of the board members and then have because there's a camera on that and have the camera facing each one of you essentially. And then you stream them to get basically you stream them to have one person would record that meeting and would have each one of your faces on that.
So it's a meeting.
Yeah, it's like a Google Meet. And it's very simple to do and very low cost.
We're gonna just do one.
That seems
One
clunky
more
to me.
for-
You
Public would have to
have
come up
one.
and approach.
Correct.
Just have
Don't
one
they
out
have
there
those
facing us
owl
and just
things
record
that-
all of us at once instead of- Yeah, that's not.
But your audio is not gonna be as clear.
What about those owl?
That's the one like Dick Anderson.
Yeah, that's what we use in our state meetings if we have to travel. So the room's not set up for it.
It used to be, right when COVID hit, they were quite costly.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Minutes are still required to be recorded. There's an optional set there that says you can reduce them to be pretty minimal, but it outlines those basic things that have to be in there. But you are still required to have a written account of the meeting as well.
Celebrated too early.
It's just the agenda times next to it.
But it says you have to have a summary of all discussion on all matters, including those matters discussed, everything proposed, deliberated, and, it basically says you have to still do minutes.
A written record.
Slides 31 through 48 are pretty
Yes.
clear.
Agreed.
Crazy. Sorry, Casey.
No, you're not.
Right.
Fight for me.
All right, so if there's no additional changes to that one, we can either do it by itself or we can proceed and do them kind of all together depending on if we pick anything else for it.
The only one I wanted to pull and talk about is 1520.
Okay.
But I can move on the other ones if you want. or you can look at- Yeah, I would probably do that.
Does anybody else have any items on the other policies that we need to discuss individually?
They're all required, right?
No, I would just note that 1240 and 1520 are not required but recommended.
Which ones?
The 1240 and 1520 are not required. So if you want to do them separately, you sure can.
Are you sure about, I think that's recommended language, but I think they're required policies. Aren't they?
Nope. They are not under the required updates. They're recommended updates.
Right, but the policies are still required. The updates to them are not required. So we still have to have those policies in the policy manual. They've made changes to them, but they are recommended.
Weren't they adopted in our original policy package?
The original one, not what is before us today. What is before us today is a recommended change.
Right, but you don't have to.
Right.
Okay. One other, sorry to go backwards, but one other one I just wanted to verify with you guys on 7320, the authorization and control, it sets a dollar amount that the board needs to approve without the superintendent's oversight. So we've traditionally done $80,000 in the past, and I bring almost everything to you guys. So, but for example, like the premium funds, to add that door entrance that we want to do, it's about $4,000. I'd like to be able to move on some of those kinds of things, especially at least get them scheduled. But we always talk about, purchases with you guys, but that's why this is here, in case we need to take care of something and don't have to call a meeting to do so.
But it's capital purchases, and not just, right?
Right.
So I'm not understanding the difference of why, what we deem capital versus not capital here.
Isn't it considered a capital purchase if it hits that threshold? In the ESSER reporting.
No, the threshold's much smaller. Like if it's a fixed asset,
Yeah,
anything over 5,000.
5,000.
Anything over 5,000 is
The
capital?
$80,000 number is where we're required to go out for.
Go out for bid. That's right.
I think
That's when we have to go out for bid. Is that
has been smaller than the 80,000.
Things like that.
Do you have the old?
Depreciable items.
No, that's a good question. On my desktop, I have that funky link that Joe made me so I could search through our old policies, but I don't have it handy. So I can certainly look that up.
I mean, I'm fine with
We can
that.
table that one.
What standard practice is or what's been done.
Yeah, that number was lower. I just can't remember.
Yeah, you're right. I got it mixed up with
Yeah,
the
80,000 is where anything
going out
over
for bid.
80,000 we're required to go out for a public bid. Well, maybe let's just exclude that one.
Do you want to table that one and I can pull up the old policy?
Make sure we.
What makes sense.
Okay, so if nothing else, then we'll go to that 1520. And Jason, you said you got something.
So my concern came with the underlying language under visits to schools. I don't necessarily agree with the language that's being added. I just use the first sentence from the last sentence and call that.
I'll tell you what, Daniel called me, we talked about this, and I reached out to MTSBA, and he said that was language that was added to certain districts because they were having struggles, obviously, in that department. And he gave me another option. I'll read it. And so it keeps the first line, keeps the first two lines. Then it says, individual board members visiting schools without other trustees should notify the superintendent or principal of the visit. It takes away that component that says it has to have board approval. Basically, it just says you're gonna notify the superintendent or the principal when you're gonna come in to do a visit. Not necessarily just come into the school, but if you're going to come in and spend time, spend time in a classroom, spend time doing something. And then it keeps the end of that is the same. Such individual visits shall be regarded as informal expressions of interest in school affairs and not as inspections or visits for supervisory, evaluative, or administrative purposes.
And that's
So pretty much what we
basically,
have now.
that's what our correct.
Right, but they added the recommendation that they put in there
That was pretty
is
stiff.
that, yeah, basically you have to have full board approval before a trustee could come in.
Yeah, if you look at our current policy, that's what it says. Courtesy.
So that, I would agree with, Jason and Daniel on that. I think it's unnecessary for us right now. Lisa?
I guess that proposed language is concerning to me in that we have begged and pleaded for board members to come into our classrooms. And now that language appears to me, as I read it, that it's being hampered. And we want you to come into our school. We want you to see the things that are going on in our classrooms. And
Just give us 3 days notice.
See what they're ready.
It's not an official visit inspection.
yeah, so I mean,
Clean this up.
Chris just alluded that obviously somewhere, some people are having a lot of struggle with this, and so they've added.
you're not.
Right, and so they've added that language as a protection for the districts, but he made it clear that we definitely did not have to accept that language. So if everybody's,
I was gonna say, I had the exact same thought, because part of the reason I ran was hearing the teachers feel like they didn't see board members as much, and they wanted to be heard and all that, and I see that little, wait a minute, we're kind of feel like that is just for a small school district. I did find that proposed language at some of the larger schools, and I could see that makes sense, being rural, but maybe this is a stretch, but I kind of was wondering about if I come have lunch with my kid, then I get asked a school board question, am I now in violation of this policy? Where maybe bigger schools, you don't have that board member parent conflict, I don't know, but.
What happens?
you look confused.
Well, I didn't actually understand, like, who polices it?
The board.
The board.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's silly.
I think, I appreciate that you guys usually reach out to myself. It's just nice to, make sure we don't have an IEP or something going on at the time or the principals when, or obviously if you stop in, we can figure out a different time or make it work. So seems to work just fine here.
I thought that was a more appropriate way to handle it, was just reaching out and just either letting you know, or the principals know that we're planning on stopping by them.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments, discussion on policies?
Just one last thing on that one. I just want to say, and thank you for going out of your way to show up for activities and athletics and science fair and things like that, even when you don't have your own students in them, it doesn't go unnoticed, and we appreciate the extra time that you guys put in. I did have one thing to say back to, I'm glad we're tabling that one because I definitely do want to look at it, because there are software programs that we sign off, that I sign off on purchasing, for example, that are $10,000 or so. I mean, those kinds of bills come across the desk pretty regularly. So,
My memory tells me that we had like 25,000.
yeah.
I don't,
And then we've been in situations where like we have to spend a certain amount of money in a short time frame. Of course, we could try to call an emergency board meeting, but we've talked about, you know, so those are the kinds of reasons that can be necessary. I mean, the Lightspeed one I signed off the other day was almost $10,000, and that's just an annual software that we have to do to keep the student safety on the computers in place. So just an example.
okay, any other items? Okay, if not, motion to approve on first reading.
I could move to approve on first reading those policies as discussed.
Are you approving 1240 as well? The 1240 is referencing the 1520 we just changed, so I was just wondering, are you good enough? So I was just saying you're following those procedures that you just changed it to, right?
Right, it's just saying that you'll abide by that policy. Okay, is there a second on that?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the policies as discussed upon first reading. Is there any discussion?
And that's including, as discussed, not
Right.
changes.
Yep. Yeah, I will
Take out.
give her that so that she has it. Discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. All right, principal's report. Mrs. Hartman. Oh, no, more hand up.
I'm drowning over here.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That's right.
Looks like it is.
It is longer. There you go, there's all backside too.
Oh, I thought Jason was leaving because he
No.
knew homework.
Jason's like,
Is
he's
that
out.
not?
So I'll just jump to this first and then go back. So this is a teacher request form. I did talk to Susie about anything that policies or like that. It doesn't look like this falls under that guidelines anywhere. We are getting such a large number of requests anymore that we just can't fulfill them. It's just not gonna work anymore, with the number of students we're getting. So this was, the staff has looked at this, they've put their input on it, giving every parent the option of at least a first and second choice, but then being very specific on their educational reason for that request. And then the timelines as well on it. And so I just wanted to share this with you. If you have any feedback or anything on this, love to hear it. The dates on it right now, I have a staff meeting this Thursday, so this will be the final one that the staff will look at on Thursday, just to make sure those dates work for everyone when they do meet to start creating those classrooms for the next school year.
You'll be reviewing these? Is that?
Somebody will be hard.
Yeah, I'll be, yeah. Yes.
Christina, just to clarify too, because I knew I was under the assumption, or a couple of us were, but, somebody else thought that we hand these out to parents, and I said, no.
No.
I was like, we only will give it to them if they come to us and request a teacher,
Correct.
then we will they say, this is a form, what you have to turn in.
Yeah, it's not gonna be handed to everyone, no.
And so maybe clarify that too,
Yes.
because I know there was
That's
a
good
teacher
point.
that was confused by that. She thought we just send them home.
No,
Like,
we're not
don't do
no.
that. Do not give them this word. I'm like, oh boy.
That's that.
And like only if they come to you and request.
Correct, only if they request. But we're already getting requests for this next year, for kindergarten students even. I mean, we're getting hit harder every year, so.
There are schools that don't allow them at all, but then the outfall can be worse than just honoring the request up front if you can. But sometimes we can't honor all of the requests.
And that's what note does say, you know, that we can't honor all of them, and that's why asking that person second choice as well. We'll do our best, but we need to keep those classrooms balanced.
I'd just like to say how much I've appreciated the teachers over the years. I think I've never had one situation where we weren't able to get a teacher of request, and it all has to do with learning abilities, personalities and whatnot. It really makes a difference in your kids to match them up correctly. So anyway, I appreciate the initiative on this, Christina.
Okay, and then, in addition, we had our second grade family lunch. It was well attended, and thank all those families for attending that. We have third grade family lunch coming up in a couple of weeks. Next week, yes, it is next week. The months are going too fast. I do want to thank the Lions and Legion. They attended on the 20th of February and presented our first graders with flags. They also asked a few interesting questions, and I'm going to pick on Deputy Cordova because he was up at the top with me. He said that he learned a lot. Apparently, he needs to go back to first grade because he didn't know why the flag was folded in the shape of in the triangle shape, like so. After Washington's hat, he did not know that. So it was good, great attendance with them, and the kids were really well engaged. It was we had some other interesting facts the students thought they knew. I'm not going to repeat those. Some I did not want to hear. So we did the teacher request form. We did have served through good parent-teacher conferences. We do our spring conferences as student-led, trying to keep that attendance up. We have over 80% attendance in the fall. We always have a great attendance. Our spring ones do shrink. We had a 67% attendance out of 3.5. And so something to work with the team to see, do we need to make those a little bit later? Do we need to, what do we need to do with those? What do we need to do to improve that attendance rate for our families? Something that with the standards-based grading is the district my children went to was on trimesters. Just the elementary was on trimesters because they did standards-based grading because they were able to get a lot more detail and a lot more information in those three versus trying to tell you a parent that their kid knows something in a very short period of time in a quarter. So that, that's something that, we need to look at. Is that something that would be better for our elementary? And the district I came from was a Class B, and elementary was trimesters, and everyone else was quarters. It didn't change much better. As of today, we had 45 students registered for kindergarten roundup. We've only got a couple of spots left on the first day, and then we have to move into our second day for roundup. We just started advertising just these last couple of weeks. Prior to that, it was just social media and word of mouth. So we'll see what that number looks like for us now that we've actually started engaging so far. Early lit, so the team did meet with Fastbridge last week, and we're looking at one of the state-approved assessments with them, as well as a couple of other options that we can look at for the pre-K assessment. So with that, they would attend the kindergarten roundup, and then following that, based on that information, we have to see if they qualify for the pre-K program. We have to assess them in May or June. And so we are looking at what is that tool we're going to use. The state has given us a list of those. And so we're looking, we looked at one, and we've got a couple others we'll look at here in the next couple of weeks to see which one we want to use. The one is tied to we can tie it to Fastbridge as well, which we currently have. So that'll be nice to have that connection. But we're also looking at curriculum for that. And of course, a teacher, but if we have 3 kindergarten teachers and 1 pre-K, then we still have this for that. So we could be, a few $1,000s to get it up and running just with curriculum and the assessments we need to do that. Okay. And 5th day, we did add a bus into our route. The bus in Duck Creek is now running. We had a request to have that one run. And so that one, as well as the Winston and Silos bus is running. So there is someone talking to me about the other one now, so we may be getting all of them running here soon. Just getting that larger number of students involved. The after-school program is growing as well. I'm actually going to add some staffing on Mondays because we're seeing almost 50 kids at night on Mondays alone. So it's just keeps growing a lot for them. Just not able to cover it with the people we have. And we have our PIR day this week. Parent-teacher conference for K2 is next week. And like I said, that's when those parents will be presented with that standard-based grading information. And then our end of third quarter, PLC the 22nd, and then we have a nice break.
Questions, comments for Christina?
Just in my mind, as we wrap around the early risk discussion, so we've decided we're not.
I've got more information for you when we get to my report,
Okay.
if that helps.
Well, I didn't want them to put a bunch of work in to try and figure out all the assessments and tools and then us not use it. Does that make sense?
And that's what that's been our concern as well, trying to put that time in.
Okay, Mr. Rock.
We had our science fair last week. Huge success, and we'd just like to thank everybody that participated in it. The parents that can't come and watch and go through the agony of having their kid do the science fair. And it just takes so many judges. And, over the years, for quite a few years, we've had kind of the same two people doing it. Ms. Shear and Mrs. Robershon always did a lot of work, and this year Ms. Goodman came in and worked with Anna Shear to do that. And that just, the logistics of it are really tough for them. And I just appreciate all the work that they put into it. All the teachers kind of pitch in and make it work. And just to receive some really positive feedback from parents about it. Ones that were there to see kind of the whole thing. And one of the reasons we do it is, scientific process is obviously important, and the concepts that they learn and being able to have that exploration and discovery that they get from doing a project. But one of the big reasons that we do it the way we do it because we feel like the ability for students to express themselves especially to adults, is important. And that's something that they have to do, and it's very much outside of the comfort zone of most of their kids, but we think it has just some really important benefits for them. And I actually got some positive feedback from several of the judges and a handful of parents that thought that was really a great concept, that they have to do that.
I was rather surprised to find out though, once you got on that judges list.
You don't ever get on.
Apparently you don't get to go.
No, don't.
I on the way out the door.
It's a secret. Nothing is wrong to be a judge.
And when poor Miss Sheriff shows up and her eyes are this big, she's like, what am I gonna do? I'm missing some judges. Everybody's judge.
Yes.
Everybody's judge.
And I would seriously think that we had several high schools,
They jumped in.
one of the problems is whenever you do something with that many people, there's some that don't show up. And so we were, several of the high school teachers that had some free time came in and helped us out. So we really appreciate it.
I really enjoyed watching Mr. Thomas bring his science classes actually, and the high school science classes went in and took some time to go through. So that was really cool too. And I think the kids, high school students really enjoyed, reminiscing about their science fair days.
They just enjoyed realizing they didn't have to do it.
Last year. That's a milestone, let me tell you.
And they will be moving on, quite a few of them. There is we do it in a competitive fashion, I guess, where they go on and represent our school at the state science fair. And our school has always done extremely well at this regional state level. At our last curriculum meeting, I shared some of the test information and kind of analyzed some of that. And that actually is kind of been a focus of some of our PLCs, and I'll be using that information I presented to you guys in our next PLC with our staff. So I'm looking forward to that. kind of tackling some of those same questions that were brought up at that meeting. In kind of the same way with our activities, you know, one of the things that came out of our activities meeting, it kind of spurred some thought into what we, you know, the things, there's always a lot of focus on what you don't do in a school, and I don't know that a lot of times, you know, when you stop and think about it, about what your school actually offers students, I'm very convinced that for a school of our size and staffing, you would be hard pressed to find a middle school that offers many more opportunities both in and out of the classroom. So it's something that we're really proud of. We're always looking for ways to expand, obviously, as long as it fits our, you know, our mission, our philosophy of what we're trying to do with kids, and it has to work out, you know, budget and staffing wise. And that's the most difficult part of any of those things. There's a lot of great ideas, but you gotta have somebody to implement them. But the staff, some people kind of looked at that list and added some things to it, and it's a pretty impressive list. So that was a good thing that came out of that last activities meeting, I think. I've mentioned several times about the classroom visits that I've tried to use with our teachers when we go visit other teachers. We've had some decent success with that. I think we could benefit from using it more. So I've used it myself. It's a great way to just give really quick feedback to teachers. But there might be some incentives coming for the first teacher that can visit so many classrooms, because I think there's just a huge benefit to it. And then our parent-teacher conferences, our most recent ones, we actually had, you know, it's kind of hit and miss that, you know, certain subject areas, certain grade levels get hit a little harder, a little better participation, but overall, it was probably a little better than what we normally see in our spring one, our late winter spring one. So we were happy to see that. And again, our PTA helped us out, provided some food for the staff, and they're just awesome. They've done some really great things with our staff. We appreciate that. And then finally, we're trying to, one of the things that's a struggle every year is finding our state testing days. And it takes about 4 days to implement all those. And so we meet as a staff and try to decide, you know, we've done it, I think, in every configuration over the years that we can possibly think of, from, you know, 1 a week for a while, 4 consecutive, breaking up different tests as the state allows, but we haven't really found that one's any better. And what we discovered, you know, testing window opens late March, ends in May, and it's incredibly hard to find once the track schedule, the golf schedule, all those things are out. It is really hard to find a time when all the kids are at school, or most of them. So I think we have it. We're shooting for the last week of April, first week of May, to get those done. We try to put them off as long as we can. We have to make sure we have to make up students that miss. And so the benefit, you know, in talking to the teachers, is the years we've moved it up where it's a little easier, like March right now would be pretty ideal. The trouble is there's a lot of material that's covered on those tests that hasn't been covered in class yet. You know, it falls late in the school year, and so students are literally testing on things they haven't even seen. So we try to put them off as late as we can and still have time for all the makeups, and that's what kind of creates the problem. It's not always ideal, but we'll get all the kids tested and see if they've learned anything this year. And if they haven't, we'll just say the tests aren't very good. People did really do. So.
Questions for Mr. Rock?
Just a compliment on the science fair. That was my first opportunity to judge it. It was amazing. The students, the quality of projects, even the presentation skills, you could tell they've been coached.
Yep, they were
represent and just transition on the boards. And so hats off to you and your staff for.
Well, thank you.
Really, really impressive.
Thanks for coming.
You just wait.
We appreciate it. I won't be nearly as cool, but if you're having, when your kids
You'll
are.
be so sick and tired of hearing that presentation, but.
No, the kids work hard, and I will say, this year was, of all, kids were, there were kids that were, there's always students that, they're just relieved it's over, and some don't want to move on. There were some that were just really bummed about, thought they really had a project that they were proud of and wanted to move on. And I thought that was, a couple of them were, so I'm kind of glad to see that it meant that much to them, because some of them really put in some good work and some neat ideas. So thank you for the feedback, and thanks to all of you that helped us out.
Ms. Emmer.
All right, so, just want to do some shout outs and congratulations to our basketball programs, basketball teams, finishing their seasons, hard fought seasons, lots of work and effort by all involved, and some really exciting, basketball games that we all got to sit through and watch as well. That segues right nicely into spring sports. High school practices started yesterday, and so we are rolling with golf and tennis and track, and we have some really great turnout for all of those programs. So excited to see the number of kids becoming active. I think, after having a little break there in March, they're all pretty excited to get back into the swing of things with their activities as well. We too are obviously engaging in our spring testing. It's kind of a theme. MAPS, we'll do our MAPS testing on March 19th. That's our benchmark testing just for our use internally in the high school for title programs and any students that we need to look at, making sure they're in the proper classes and levels and with all of those programs as well, so they can be successful. And then we do have the ACT coming up on April 10th. That's the test that all the juniors take, and that is, as of now, our state testing component for the high school. We aren't sure what that's going to look like in the future, but as of now, that's still what we use. And honestly, we all know anybody who has gone post-secondary ed maybe has likely experienced some of the ACT and SAT as students coming out of high school. They're daunting. I have to say, I am really proud of the high school staff and some of the areas and ways that they address that. We definitely work, Mrs. Flynn's advanced comp class. We encourage those kids that are going to be taking those tests to engage in that class as well. She gives them a lot of practice with how to effectively write and take the ACT as far as those areas are concerned. And then they even have extra practices, host some extra practices in the evening so kids can really boost those scores and have time to really get some feedback. And, a lot of being a successful standardized test taker, especially big tests like the ACT and the SAT, is just learning how they're asking the questions, what that looks like, how you can negotiate that so that you can come up with a good answer or know how to address those questions. And half of it's just learning what they're asking, how to take the test, and, obviously having the knowledge base that they've gained in their high school years thus far to do that. So we'll get those out of our way as well here soon. I just wanted to speak to, I really made it a goal for myself this year to be able to do a better job. One of my goals was, as a principal, I know we get so sucked in to, the nuts and bolts of every day and the runnings of the offices and the things that we have to do that sometimes other things will go by the wayside that are equally as important, if not more important. That is, giving feedback to teachers and sitting in classes and observations and evaluations and providing that instructional coaching that honestly, that's our favorite thing to do as admin. That's what we want to do. We want to build our teachers up and build our curriculums up. So I really pushed myself to make that so much better and improve that on my end. And I had a blast being in so many classrooms and being able to really put a conscious effort and spend a lot of time giving a lot of good feedback. Well, hopefully it's good feedback. I shouldn't say that. Giving feedback to teachers, just based off observations of what I see. I think it's built and strengthened a lot of relationships with the high school teachers and the staff. And we definitely are going to look at engaging in some of the activities that the middle school's been doing with their kind of peer, what do I want to say, evaluation or feedback, peer feedback, so they can help each other as well. I mean, we all want to be great teachers. We want our classrooms great. And we want our students, to want to be here. And this was expressed in our curriculum meeting as well. We want kids to want to be here and to engage in our program and engage in our learning and the opportunities that we provide them and make it as top notch as we can. So I've had a great time, some great stuff going on in the high school classrooms, and I know they as well would be more than open and welcoming to anybody popping in to sit in on some lessons. We have some really cool stuff going on in those high school classrooms. So it's kind of building off of that. It's Liz Tess's turn, our Strive instructional coach in person, to come in and spend some time with the high school. I'm very excited for us to have her in coming up at our next PLC day. We're going to actually kind of segue back in this time of year to our pacing calendars and the reviews that we did of our deep dives we did into our curriculum pacing as we started the school year. Do some collaboration and reflection on, what pieces worked with the factors that we can control, what are the things that we want to encourage, for example. Obviously, one of our big motivations as well is to make our instruction good so that we can increase our enrollment here and keep it very competitive with other programs like online programs and things like that. How can we build some of those things in for our students as well? So we're definitely going to work together as a group with Liz to see, how we the factors that we can control, like our instructional practices and how we keep it rigorous, how we keep it relevant, how we keep it engaging, how we can help those students that sometimes classically struggle, that just say, I'm done, I'm out, what can we do? What are interventions? What are some things that we can do to help those students stick with us and get through, make it through the 4 years of high school so that they can improve their choices and the things that they can do when they get out after graduation. So we just want to really get them to stick with us and stay till graduation. That's one of our major goals in the high school as well. So we're excited to work with her. I think it might be a good boost. We all know how we all get tired in March, and it might be a really good boost to everybody's teaching and self-esteem to engage in some of those conversations that we can help improve not only the rest of this year, but going into next year. So we're excited for that. We have some fun activities going on. The middle school academic Olympics are in Bozeman today. Did you hear any updates yet, Brad, how they did?
Did not.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything yet either. And then the high school goes tomorrow. This is the big contest that they do at MSU Bozeman for an entire day. It's like a quiz bowl type situation. Really fun. It's become a very fun activity. We have a good crew of kids headed out for the high school tomorrow. I think they leave at 6:45. They're all very excited. Get there bright and early. I'm hoping to attend some of that tomorrow. We'll see how the day rolls out, how the morning rolls out. It's always fun to go watch them compete in that contest. So we have FCCLA, as I kind of spoke last month, everybody's getting into kind of their postseasons for our organizations like that, our co-curricular things. They are going to state in Bozeman here at the end of this week. And then we have the end of the quarter coming up on Thursday. We have State Skills USA the following week, the 24th through the 26th in Helena. And so that'll be Clint and his crew over there convening in all of their activities at the state level. So I'm excited to see how they do. And then State FFA Convention rolls out the first week of April in Billings. So it's going to be busy wrapping up those other activities for the year in the next few weeks.
Well, thank you, Sherry. Quick question, the high school absences, is it divided by a number of days, or am I reading that wrong? Or is that
it's divided, per grade, so it's just number of days per grade. So as a total, for example, in February,
Per month.
93 total students. So the entire ninth grade, the students comprised of that, and this is a total of 93.5 days. Does that make sense? Is that what you're asking?
Okay, yeah, yes, and no, I guess I'm looking for like enrollment numbers. Does this track that for those months or?
Enrollment number? No, it just tracks the number of absences.
Okay, do you have a enrollment number where you're at right now?
I do.
184, last count, 184. I think it's 180, I think it was 184.
Okay.
That's recollection, I have to look, but
No, thanks. Are we still doing math counts or math meets to do those?
Math counts
That's middle school.
in the middle school, we
Middle
do,
school,
yes.
okay.
and I know Laura had taken some kids to a math Olympics or something a few years as well. And so I don't think we've done that for a while. I'm not sure why. That's a good question.
I remember Paul Flynn used to take us to Bozeman. When you said Bozeman to Olympics, I didn't know if they just changed the name or.
Oh, no,
something.
it's
No,
a different
separate.
thing. Yeah,
Okay,
different thing. Different activities.
okay, thank you.
All right. Ms. Helen.
Okay, well, I thought I only had a couple things, and then the more you guys talk, the more I'm like, oh yeah, and that, and that, and that. So I'll try to keep it quick. We're doing pretty good on our meeting tonight with a robust agenda. So I want to touch on driver's ed. So we do have a teacher that is working on certification and will have that by summer. So we do need to have more of a conversation about what that program is going to look like going forward. As far as pay, as far as, is it still going to be part of the school day? Is that going to work for this person who is interested in teaching that, and how we move forward? So we had two gentlemen interested, and one had, wasn't sure if they had the time to commit at the right now, and one jumped in. And then it was really fun because I got to meet Dwight today, who I've been emailing for a year and a half about this conundrum of having these highly qualified folks that couldn't be driver's ed instructors because they weren't teachers. And then we went through the whole licensure process and created that pathway for them to be a driver's ed teacher. And so I met him at the superintendent conference today, so that was very exciting. He grabbed me, he's like, Susie, we've been emailing for almost 2 years, it feels like. So that was exciting. I attended, I was only able to attend the very end of the conference yesterday, and a brief session this morning, but it was a very important one. The U of M Safe Schools Center did an awesome presentation that I got to participate in, and a little bit of lunch and come back to the school. But I got to talk to folks about online programs for high school students and get good information to bring back to the team. Like I said, talk to the state drivers ed gentleman, and got some great safety information and training for our new SRO lined up, and for our whole staff. Mariah Pace from our co-op was there, special ed co-op was there as well. So we're going to do a regional one on threat and risk assessment, and make sure that we get more of a comprehensive team trained in that area, as is recommended. So that was a really good session with the Safe School Centers and some of the new things they have to offer since I've heard from them in the past. So we're excited about that and the potential for driver's ed. I just want to make sure we take a look at that and how we're going to continue that program if it's important to our school, and providing that to our community. As far as staffing goes, another position that we will need to talk about filling is custodians. As we know, Oj is leaving us here shortly, and then Mr. Riddle has been we've known for about a year now that he was looking at retirement. He did promise me a 3-month notice, but I have not received that yet. So we will have some, need to look at that and plan some folks to do some training with him. We've already, asked him to make sure he's trying to show as many people as he can when he's doing something technical or that kind of thing. But those will be big shoes to fill. So we're working on that. We've been advertising those custodian positions, and we might have to get more aggressive about that at this rate. So as far as teacher openings, we will have to look at how the reorganization goes and things play out with how many kindergarten spots we end up having. As we know, with the current budget that we have projected, which we will be going over on the PIR day and be explaining to the staff, we're looking at potentially not filling one vacancy and putting in for a waiver for the 0.5 librarian position of Mr. Severide. So we will be reorganizing to utilize the staff we have, not cutting or riffing anybody that we have on staff, but trying to make the best use of the teaching staff that we have on hand, which could cause some shifts, so we don't have exact positions to open and advertise for right now, as we are required to do when we open those to the staff, first to the internal staff and then externally. So on the PIR day, we will start with going over the budget with all of the teachers. I think that that's important so they understand where we're at, kind of how, a little bit about the budget and how it works. As you guys know, it's very complicated in that budget workshop that I went through with you. You might have been my test run. I think I figured out some different ideas and ways to go about it with the staff. So I've been working on how to present that. And so they understand why we have, the amount we have for supplies, why we've had to tighten up in certain areas. And also I'm interested in seeing what their thoughts and ideas are on what pieces are critical or what components, just like when we talked to the curriculum committee. It was great to get their feedback and input on some of the different programs. Like, yes, Lexi is really important to our instruction, but we didn't know that was the price tag on it, right? Maybe we can look at other things. And so that'll allow us to have those conversations. And then Casey's done a great job of putting together some work. And we've had a lot of conversations, her and Pam and I, on how to, once again, revamp the ordering and requisition process for spring orders. We've had a hard time coming up with a system that has worked well. But I am glad that, we're going to keep moving forward until we find something that works and works well for the staff and the business office. So we have been working on that. Casey's put some good materials together. Then the staff will have some time to put their orders in, and then they'll have a building level meeting. And then in the afternoon, we'll move into the accreditation components that are required by OPI. So we have to review the comprehensive needs assessment and gap analysis, which is basically, how we're doing, what areas we're struggling in, and what we're doing to fix those. A lot of this work had to be done for the 21st Century Grant to be submitted. So we've already done the paperwork for a lot of this. The Integrated Strategic Action Plan basically is what you're going to do because of that. We need to review our Indian Education for All implementation because of the new legislation and lawsuit that is occurring. And then that's now part of the accreditation piece, that you have a plan. We also are required to have a community and family engagement plan and begin the work of a portrait of a graduate, which I've talked to Andy about making sure we hit on in our strategic planning as well. This year, we're just required to start the conversation, but we have to have staff and community and board input on this process. We have to talk about what we want a student to look like when they complete school from Townsend School District. So that's what we will be doing on Friday. So it will be a busy day. As far as early literacy goes, I just want to, we need to have a much larger conversation on that. I'll just hit on a few highlights. We're monitoring the kindergarten numbers. Obviously, currently there's 4 kindergarten teachers. Currently, there's 19 teachers in the elementary, but we have to shift them slightly because of the numbers in classes are changing, right? So we need 3 fifth grades next year, for example. So if we had 3 sections of kindergarten, we would still be at 19 teachers. If we go to 4 sections of kindergarten, we would be at 20 elementary teachers and fill the vacant classroom that we currently have, which we currently have 4 kindergartens. We're kind of thinking that we won't get to 4, but it's very hard to tell at this point. I know our neighboring districts, feel like that bubble from COVID might have burst where parents were holding their children back because of COVID and those kinds of things. So we kind of had this large number of kindergartners coming in that might be over. So we might have 3 regular kindergarten sections. And in that case, we could have the potential to offer a pre-K in that additional classroom. We would potentially, like I said, there's still some unknowns. We're still not to the end of our school year funding. We could potentially have some funding in ESSER and the targeted grant to pick up the curriculum that would be needed for that program. We already have the furniture. Some of the districts I've been talking to are struggling to come up with the furniture for another classroom like that. And then we would be looking at the teacher and how we could cover the cost of that teacher to get that program started, because we wouldn't get the A and B funding and that wouldn't be until next year. A lot of the districts are doing pre-K. I think the most important reason, and as a former kindergarten teacher, we all know that early intervention and those students having that chance, to hear that vocabulary and language at that early age is critical. So depending on our community needs, if this fills a need in our community, for families, that maybe don't qualify for Head Start, but private preschool is a bit expensive for. There's that gap in between there, right? And then also there's that extra level with this preschool component through the legislation that requires that they meet the criteria per the assessment that Mrs. Hartman has talked about. So I appreciate that the team's looking into it, because it's going to be one of those things where it's going to come down to kindergarten registration and roundup. And at one point, we're just going to have to make a decision. Is it important for us to provide this? I think a lot of it's going to depend on kindergarten numbers. But another factor is that it is a potential way to increase A and B, which is why some districts are doing it. And putting the investment in now so that in the future the budget is at a better level, which there is other conversations too. Of course, that means there's more kids on the playground, so you need more playground supervision. You need more, potentially a parrot in that classroom, especially with little ones. So the cost of what we get for providing, for those additional students, and then how much it actually costs to run that program. We haven't ran those figures yet, but those are just some of the conversations we've been having. So right now we'll just be closely watching those kindergarten numbers, and we can't even move forward with early literacy until later on. According to the law, we're not allowed to screen the kids until later this spring to see if they would qualify for that. And I think part of it is to see if there's a need in the community as well, like we talked about. So I talked a little bit about safety already. We're doing great work on that. It was a interesting fire drill the other morning with our new app. It went pretty well, but we definitely learned from it. And that's one thing, we ran out of time at our admin team meeting. I really love, our admin team meetings when we all get to put our heads together, but that was when we didn't make it to that on the list today to debrief on. Overall, the staff did awesome. Almost all of the staff had their phones checked in properly. We had a few staff that, didn't have it loaded properly yet, or forgot to bring their phone with them out to the drill or things like that. But we had learned some lessons. Unfortunately, it was snowing and we had a few people end up with broken bones and different things because it was snowing faster than we could clear it off the sidewalks. So it was an interesting one, but I think it was pretty exciting for us to see how the app worked and to see the reports that it produced. And I know Nick Rouser and Tony Cordova came in and went over the reports with me after. And so it was a good experience. And then, like I said, we have some more trainings coming up.
Susie, can I just ask a quick question on that app? Does that get triggered by the alarm system, or is that separate?
Nope, it's separate.
I was here the other night when the alarm went off, so I wasn't sure if,
Popcorn got burnt.
right, I wasn't sure if that would trigger anybody that was going off. Or
No, but if someone could have, right? If there was an
Sure.
employee in there, someone could have been like, oh, I should.
I thought about that because I happened to be there too as
Yeah.
well when that went off. And my hesitation was, is it going to make it a bigger thing than it really is? At
Right.
that point, not knowing exactly what it was. And so I was very apprehensive to just go ahead and utilize it then. But it's something that we're going to have to work through.
Well,
Yeah,
we don't have
that's a
it
good
going
question.
external anyway, so it would.
Well, it would be within the staff, and you
That's what-
don't want to make a stink with the staff, saying, oh my, the school's on fire.
Yeah.
You don't know what it really is.
I laughed, I had a staff member.
I know you elementary teachers would be running in here to get your little crates of.
You set it off.
Yes.
Yeah.
If then I accidentally push the button, not that.
Don't let your kids put.
Look at this, cool, we can check in places.
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
The fire's going up. Okay.
Can I ask a question? Similar to that?
Yeah.
How are we training substitutes with it?
So that's another challenge that we have. We don't have substitutes on it. So we are required to do substitute training, which we need to do a better job of. And that could be a component.
Okay. I had a personal experience with the substitute.
Yes.
Kids not having coats out in the cold and snow and stuff because of the unawareness of.
They wouldn't.
Yeah.
And
That's a piece we need to work on for sure.
well, and sometimes we don't let the staff know when we're doing drills. I understand they might have been the only class without coats that day.
Most of the time, we don't know.
Most of the time, we
That's
don't
fine,
let
but
everybody
I'm just
know.
thinking if something bigger were to happen with the school district and
Right.
Coaching development.
10 people don't know what's going on because we haven't trained them about how to use it.
And in the training, we,
Good,
and
and
the,
the word trained.
yeah, we're working on that. And the training, what we talked about is that the neighboring teacher is supposed to kind of grab and guide them. And that you can check in another person. So like the person who forgot their phone, one of the other staff members, or like John Odell was driving with Mr. Horn. So they thought it was funny to check each other in and post on the comment board. They knew we were practicing.
And
So.
honestly, that was actually good because that also made us realize that we had staff out. So like we had teachers out for different variety of reasons. And, not everybody knows who's out for what reason. Only a couple of people might know. So honestly, it was, if you're off site, no matter if you're at school or not, and you get the alert, check in, then we know, you know what I mean? Wherever, I don't know. It brought up a lot of really interesting questions when we actually ran through it about,
One of the things too was like they're on our map, it doesn't give us like our parking lots and stuff too. So everyone's like, well, where do we mark? Right? It's like, there's still some things we need to make some adjustments on.
Yeah, so when we work with the IT team, and then we're getting the external portion set up right now. So right now it's only internal, except for Tony. But we're getting it set up with our emergency responders. That was the next step. Once we worked out the kinks amongst ourselves, so we'll involve them. So then it can be triggered just for internal if it's a drill, or external, which would, if it was potentially real, would go out to the emergency responders.
There were quite a few of us that it did not sound off.
Right, so we're working with the IT
That was
team on that.
operator error, potentially. We,
Oh,
something.
Joe said or Susie said?
No.
Mark, is it good again?
No, not you guys, no, the initial drill output, it was something that didn't get, I think that was operator error.
So if you are off campus, where does it, where, is there something on there that says?
Yeah, there's a button you can click off campus.
You're just offsite.
And the parking lot does, like, I clicked that I was in the parking lot.
For the parking.
Yep,
okay.
and then I just put it as one of my favorites, because that's where we're supposed to go.
That was interesting, actually.
Don't want to repeat everything that was already said, but the science fair was awesome. Thanks to all the community members and everyone. There was a lot of judges, and it was fun to see the kids present. We have gotten a ton of recognition from around the state, and people reaching out, and even at the conference I was at, people talking about our incredible 5th day program. So kudos for that. And then Sherry just does such a fabulous job with all of the activities. And I have been asked, who does your Facebook posting? Like, they are on it. So, and I know you're not the only one that posts on it, but the main one. And I don't know how you do it. So, and then I just want to thank Casey and Pam for just constantly staying on top of things and coming up with ways to make the office more efficient. So appreciate everyone's great work. I did want to hit briefly on the state testing. I'm hoping at my meeting on the 18th, we learn more about what that's going to look like, but we are getting a new state test for next year. And I heard from colleagues that there's some concerns out there about how that's going to work. And my biggest concern is that we don't know a lot about it yet, or how it's going to be implemented, and that's coming soon. So we're staying tuned for that. And then, like Sherry said, at the high school level, the funding went away that provided the ACT as the statewide test. We're hoping that it's going to get addressed, but there's just some unknowns there for the future. So we're keeping eyes on all of those things. One more time, I wanted to shout out that the strategic planning is April 4th from 4 to 6, and that we would love, if anybody's still watching, right? We would love community input and staff input. And we have, I also did look up Clint's email, and Clint and Ron Saladay, thank you, are doing wood shop and metal classes on March 18th, April 8th, April 15th, April 22nd, April 29th, and May 6th from 6:30 to 8:30. So just wanted to throw that out there. We are also monitoring some potential changes to school foods and nutrition. We have listened to parents, and Vicky's done a nice job of getting more protein in the breakfast. And then I know Casey has been working with school foods and keeping an eye on their information they're putting out. We've been talking about that the poverty lines might change, and for which schools are allowed to offer more free lunch to students, potentially school-wide even. So we're keeping a close eye on that. And then I know that member Cool brought up the thought of utilizing local beef and products. And so we'll continue to dive into that. Sorry, it's not something I've been able to get any quick answers to. So I think that's all I have.
Susie or Casey, I noticed in the report for the cash fund, we did receive almost $6,000 back into the metal mines fund.
We did.
So is that an active funding source again, or is that just once
No.
a year deal, or?
Into metal mines?
Was
Yeah.
it borrowed for the hail?
That's what I'm wondering.
Oh, okay, maybe that's where it came from, it's reimbursement. Wow.
Jason was absolutely correct. We did receive those hail damage funds, but Pam and I are working it in a process, and we deposited the funds with the county, and then we're gonna go back and replenish all those accounts. But we wanted to first make sure that the revenues were deposited accurately, and then unfortunately, at the same time, the treasurer's office had a large vacation. So it's not reflected, but we kind of did it in a process. Yep. Thank you for asking about that.
Can I just acknowledge, I wanted to acknowledge our PTA. So our PTAs work on a couple of things. One of the big ones is with Mr. Riddle and Susie to get approval. The hallway over here that just kind of goes out to the exit out towards the street there. The PTA is actually creating a lost and found closet area in there. So they've got the local hardware store is working with them to put in a nice closet system for all of that lost and found, because right now parents can't access it unless they show up during school hours. And so they'll be able to access this now. We'll open it up during drop off and pick up in the afternoons. And then during weekends and evenings while the library is open, they'll be able to access it and get to that lost and found, because it just keeps growing and not going anywhere. So, yeah, so, and then we also have 2 classrooms upstairs we're no longer able to use, and we've tried now for a couple of years. When we moved out of our old building, myself and a couple of custodians last minute were trying to empty out storage closets and shove it in those rooms. So they've offered to come in and clean up those storage rooms for us as well and go through them. And we've got some curriculum up there we can actually get rid of and things. So they're going to spend some time up there. So I really appreciate all their help they've been bringing into us. And then the last thing that we're working on for K8, we're hopefully we'll see Mr. Rock kiss a pig, but we've got a coin war coming forward. And so they're going to have a coin war with K8, and we'll see who's kissing a pig in the future.
And this Friday, Christina, they're doing the pizza fundraiser.
Oh yeah, this Friday they have a pizza, Deep Creek, they have a pizza fundraiser. Yeah, for PTA, so. Yep, and so they're doing a great job, and really, really appreciate everything they're doing for us, so, yeah.
Well, staff's excited when they get that.
Yeah.
Which end of the pig are you kissing?
If I have a say.
You'll know your sweet face.
Mr. Roger, you're putting an awful lot of money into
Let's say, the more silver this added, the better. Someone said that they won't be kissing that pig then. Oh, yeah, green too.
So I got one final thing for the board. We may have to have a quick special meeting. We have our insurance rates that will be coming at us here very soon. Once we receive those, the board has to approve it. And then we have, because there's a very narrow window for the open enrollment. If we miss the first window, we don't get to do it again until the end of May.
It would push it to the end, period before the end of May, and that.
So once she gets.
Thank you, yes.
Once she gets that notification, we will have to comply with the 48-hour notice, but we will have to have a special meeting. We can even do it remotely. We just have to get 3 board members to approve that, but that is something that we will have to act on as quickly as we possibly can so that she can turn that around for the employees. Once we know that, we will set that up.
They gave us notification Friday, and the window is the 18th through the 22nd. So cross your fingers to the 18th.
Right after I give you kudos for not making us have to have a special meeting
I know.
with your diligent other work. And never mind, I'll wait until we close. For my next.
All right, thank you, everyone. Meeting adjourned.
I had to eat that pie last year.